Hi, welcome to another week, and we would like to start with the global events that had taken place during the last week. The first one is an interesting announcement from Washington. Washington declared that they had removed the preferential trade status for India and Turkey, and for the reasoning that they had said, because the economical development for these countries are not within the developing countries status, implying that their economies are now within developed countries status, or let's say the initial stage of the developed countries. Now, although these countries have been experiencing significant economic problems, especially Turkey at the moment, it is very suspicious to consider that these two countries are within developed country status. But nevertheless, this is Washington's the announcement. So what does it mean for these two countries? Now, while you are in the preferential trade status, it gives some privilege to companies within the US to make some trade with you. But now, since it has been taken out, it means that these business affairs will be affected, which has also a bad sign for these two countries. The other very important announcement is coming from the Saudi foreign minister, saying that normalizing ties with Damascus needs some time. It's not very much, the conditions are very much premature in Syria, and it requires some time in order to establish security and some other organizational institutions to develop so that the ties can be again established. Some countries are supporting this, and some countries do not supporting this within Arab League. This is also very interesting to consider. Nevertheless, such establishment or links, once and if will be established, it will maintain or it will give a high status to al-Assad government, because it's going to terminate the isolation of the Syrian government from the international community, at least from the Arab National League, which is very important to be aware. That's why that announcement was important. Now, EU governments agree on a foreign investments screening in strategical sectors such as telecommunications, data exchange. Why? Because of the Huawei status within now United States eyes. As you know, United States has been claiming that Huawei equipments are used for espionage or data exchange I would say environment, especially to Chinese, so that they can be used in order to, I would say, acquire the technological secrets of the companies, either national or international. It's not a problem for these equipments to acquire once it is used within the company. So that is an action that has been taken against to China, especially because most of the countries, especially US and EU, have been claiming that they are used for espionage purposes. So this is going to be an obstacle for China while implementing their One Road, One Belt initiative, especially in Italy. Recently they have been investing heavily, and their requirements usually contain clauses to use the Chinese equipments like Huawei and people. So once it's going to be now in agenda of the countries to screen such investment programs, we do not know how China is now going to respond to that. But definitely it will be a barrier. Pakistan, as you know, last week's India and Pakistan tensions were high again due to a dispute in Kashmir. Now, in order to reduce this tension, Pakistan has been cracking down on militant activities. This is to ease the pressure coming from the international arena, as well as it's a message to India that they don't want to have any war or a hot conflict in the region. So that's important to be aware. Algeria. You know that we were reporting that President Bouteflika has been running the 5th term within the presidential campaign, but the Algeria's national organization of Mujahideen has issued a statement that they have been in favor of those ongoing anti-government protests. Now, this is very important news to be aware that Algeria's elites are now shifting sides. At least there is a disagreement within among the elites. So we think that it's very important aspect to see what will happen within the elections. But we are expecting that this is going to affect the presidential race a lot. Now, Afghanistan, as you know, Taliban and the United States are in a negotiation stage to withdraw from Afghanistan, and the 5th round of these negotiations had taken place in Doha, Qatar, lately. Taliban demanded US to withdraw within a year, which is very important to be aware. United States have almost 15,000 manpower, and within their foreign allies it accumulates to 22,000 soldiers. So if this is going to be taken in a year, countries like Pakistan will be affected greatly, because this is so fast, so quick, that there will be a power vacuum, and it's going to be filled with another power, which is a question mark, because Afghanistan government is also corrupted, and also Taliban is very heavily effective there. We consider Taliban is going to fill this power, and this is going to be definitely create an instability in the region. Even it is going to affect the relations between Pakistan and India, because those Taliban groups are also mostly Sunnis, and they are also against India in that region, especially in Kashmir. So we are going to closely monitor how this is going to also affect or how it's going to contribute to instability in the region. Now, one economic news from United Arab Emirates. Now, the private sector job cuts is a 10-year high, which is very important, despite the fact that Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates have been implementing economic recovery programs in order to boost the economy. We see that this is not working effectively, and still the private sector jobs cutting are ongoing. The foreign labor market is declining, the housing market is declining, and the diplomatic populations or the ties doesn't contribute greatly. This is going to affect the economies also in future, it means. We will closely monitor how it's going to affect it, because countries like Saudi Arabia and UAE have a high importance in the region in terms of economy, and if their economy is declining, it's going to affect other countries too. Kenya and Somalia, as you may or may not know, but Kenya has withdrawn its ambassador from Somalia in February due to the dispute maritime issue. Now, two leaders, the Somali President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed and Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, have agreed to restore the diplomatic relations once again after several weeks of disagreements. Why this has erased? Because the maritime issue also contains the issue of the energy blocks, and energy blocks is very important for their economy. And that's why this is still undisputed, unsolved issue between those countries. And we think that unless it's going to be solved, it's going to create another problem once again in future. But in order to reduce the tension, these two prisoners' actions are also considerably important. Now, U.S. trade deficit jumps to 10-year high, $621 billion. It was a rise of $120 billion approximately since 2017. This is too high, and although President Trump had been recently, or had been since his election campaign, disagree about the trade deficiency between U.S. and respective countries, we now see that it's even increasing more. So we wonder why it has been increasing, and we concluded that the tax cut and the tax refund, including the strong US dollar within the global economy, contributes to this deficiency a lot. People have now more money in their pocket. They want to buy more, and more means either it's a local company or manufacturers or international manufacturers. So there are now more goods coming to US, which contributes a kind of, not a kind of a trade efficiency. And unless this is going to take place in that regard, we estimate that it's going to increase even more. Venezuela, we have some couple of news now from Venezuela. Now, again, US, Washington has imposed some sanctions against the foreign banks engaged in the business with the Maduro government. Now, what does it mean? As you know, there are some countries such as Turkey, Russia, China, Cuba, Mexico. They are with Maduro government. And the United States, European Union, and some other South American countries such as Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, I believe, and Uruguay, I think. They are with Guaido government. And the Maduro government is trying to find a way in order to overcome the economical problems that US has been causing for some time through the third parties, and which means that the business with Turkey, China, and Russia is highly important. Russia was trying to sell the oil and the gas. Turkey is trying to also do some gold business with Maduro through their foreign banks. But now it is clear that US wants to apply the sanctions where these foreign banks is using US dollar. Now, of course, US cannot impose any sanctions on the Russian, Turkish, or Chinese banks to be to, let's say, trade in Venezuela, but just other than dollars. If dollars is going to be in the business, of course they are going to track this. But if the local money or Russian ruble, Turkish lira, Chinese yuan, or any other currencies might be in the circulation, then also US Treasury Department cannot do any sanctions. So we are going to closely monitor how these countries will respond to that. Now, there was a news last week that the unknown government faction within the Venezuelan government has terminated or cancelled an arrest warrant on to Guaido. So what does it mean? It shows that there is a hidden faction within the Maduro government, which on the stage seems like within Maduro, but actually they are working with Guaido or the faction. And it's important that there might be some elites shifting sides from Maduro to Guaido. Why? This is mostly that they might have an agreement with the US about some immunity and some advantages, let's say, for future. So we will closely monitor this, because if this is going to take place more and more by time, it might constitute an end to a Maduro government in future. Now also there's another important indicator that the oil workers unions sent some representatives to Guaido meeting. Oil union workers are very important within the Venezuelan society. There are a lot of people working in that union. And a shift from Maduro to Guaido will make Guaido organization very strong because they have a majority number of people within the unions. This will hamper the oil production even more if something happens like that. So we are going to closely monitor this and the effects in Venezuelan economy. So for this week, there was also an announcement from the U.S. Advisor, John Bolton, security advisor. Bolton said that they have now seen some construction of launch facility within North Korea, although they are not important as it was for the continental missile launch facilities. They are much more smaller ones. If they are going to pursue construction, he literally said they can forget, or North Korea can forget, the easing of the sanctions. So we are going to monitor how North Korea is going to reply this, but considering all the history that between North Korea and the United States, we definitely do not think that North Korea is going to stop these kind of construction facilities. In fact, they are going to increase it. Why? Because it will give them leverage in the negotiation table. China's economic headaches or problems still persist a lot, despite the fact that they are trying to inject cash and some economic stimulus program. None of them has been worked efficiently. That's for clear. Housing sectors is coming down, other sectors is coming down. The US sanctions has been very much affecting negatively the Chinese economy, and the economic growth is expected within maybe next decade between 6 to 6.5%. Even my estimation will be 4 to 5% in some quarters at least. And we are going to now see how this is going to affect in future the relations between China and United States. But it's still, we are predicting that China and United States is going to somehow conclude a mutual understanding about the economic trade, how it should be, because it's, as you see, the trade efficiency increasing in the United States, the economic stimulus is getting slower and slower in China. Both countries are losing at the moment, as well as these both countries are losing, developing countries and other nations are also losing. This is not good for the global economy. And we believe that somehow in between 1 to 3 years they are going to agree about trade relations between those two global powers, and hopefully the economic development programs will be again implemented in worldwide, so the economic recoveries will arise again. Thank you for watching us this week. These are our news that we want to share with you. I hope you like it.